welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new around here, my name is Katie, I'm a full-time sketchbook artist, and today I'm going to be reviewing and having a look at the Holbein Acrylic Gouache set, which is in collaboration with Rebecca Green. So I've loved Rebecca Green's work for a very long time, and they actually came out with this set back in 2021, but it sold out. And there were a few more releases and they also sold out, so it's a really popular paint set. But in case you didn't get your hands on it, just like I didn't back then, I thought I would review it today because they have released some more in a higher quantity, so I feel like it's going to be a lot easier to get your hands on this. And I want to talk about the colours, talk a little bit more about acrylic gouache, and see how I find this set. So I have used acrylic gouache before, I have used Holbein colours before. When I went to Japan last year, I bought a few back, so you might have seen a video about that on my channel, so I'll leave a link to that one up in the cards. But what I really liked about this set was the colours. So this has been curated specifically by Rebecca Green, who uses a lot of acrylic gouache in her work, and I thought it would be really nice to just swatch them out first. If you've been on my channel before, you know I always recommend this, and I'm actually doing two swatches of each colour. One where I'm using it straight out of the tube, and another one where I'm adding a bit of water. So acrylic gouache does dry really matte, which is exactly like traditional gouache, but the difference is that it's more like acrylic in that when it's dry, it's completely set. With traditional gouache, you can reactivate it with water, whereas you can't with the acrylic one, and that's because of the different binders. So you can use them similar to gouache in that you can add water to them. I did get a comment on the other video talking about me using them wrong, but I'm very much a believer that you can't really use any art materials wrong. Just have a play with them and see what happens, because I really don't think there should be set rules. So whether you believe in that or not, I do use a lot of water in my work, so that's why I decided to do two swatches. One where it was straight out of the tube and one where I've used a little bit more water. And on some of them you can definitely see a difference where the tone is slightly lighter, and on others it's quite similar, but I thought it was interesting, particularly with like the green and the vermilion at the top. So there's a really good blog post that I will link below on the Jackson's Art website, which is where I bought this set from, and that was written by Rebecca Green, and she talks about the versatility with this paint. So as I said, it can be thinned with water and you can use it quite transparent, but you can also use it quite thickly, and that's generally how I would use acrylic paint, where you use it quite thick and very opaque, whereas with traditional gouache I do, like I said, add a lot of water. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the colours in this set as we go. I'm also going to mix a few up so we can play around with the shades, but I'm also going to use this to create a painting in my sketchbook. So I'm doing 30 days of sketchbook joy at the moment, so I'll be painting for the Fast Fish prompt. I'm doing this voiceover a little bit later, but this was from day 7. Here's a little overview of all of the colours in the set. You can see they are quite bright. There are definitely some muted options that you can use on their own, and also mixing them together. So that's what I'm doing just on the rest of the spread here. I wanted to swatch these on really white paper just to really see the colours shine. It can change a little bit depending on the tone of your paper, but I really wanted to see how they looked on this white paper base. And I really enjoyed playing around with the colour here. I only did a few different options. There's a huge array, and you'll have seen at the beginning where I showed you that piece of paper that comes in the box where it shows lots of different variations that you can do just from mixing all of the different colours together and creating different shades by varying the quantities of the paint. So here I'm using different greens. You can make some really lovely, more olive toned greens. You can also create some really muted sort of violet colours, some soft pinks, and also different tones of brown as well. So let's talk a little bit about the colours that are in the set. So the vermilion is probably the brightest, that's the really nice red. And then quite similar to that is the coral red, which you can see above here. I just mixed up a lighter orange, so those two with the mustard also works really nicely. And I also really like the turquoise. So there is a good range, like you've got the primary, so you've got the red, yellow and blue, but they're not the primary colours, so it's not a clean blue. It's actually smalt blue, vermilion red, and then mustard yellow. So they do have these different tints to it, which I think creates a really nice muted tone when you do mix them together. If you know a little bit about colour theory, you'll know that the primary colours create the most cleanest colours, but I really like the versatility with this because you can have those slightly different tints on those primary colours as we know it, and create lots of variation when you mix them up. So overall I think there's a really nice range in this set. As I said, I really like the greens. I would say that the coral red and the vermilion red is kind of similar. Obviously the coral red has a bit more of a pinky tone, and I'll probably use the coral red more. It's actually one of the colours I picked up last year, and also the sap green. So there's a few, I think there's those two actually that I bought last year in Japan, and then I've got all of the other ones to experiment and play with as I paint my fish here. So you get 12 colours in total, which are 20ml each, and it is a little bit different to traditional gouache because I usually put that on my palette and then I leave it there and then I can re-wet it. So you do have to be careful because when you've put it on your palette, unless you're using a stay wet palette, if you're just using it like normal, it will dry. So I'm used to being able to re-wet the paint on my palette, but you can't do this with this. So I would say if you haven't used it before, just be careful when you are squeezing any out of the tube onto your paint palette, and make sure you don't go overboard because it will be a waste. If you don't use it all in that one session, you will not be able to re-wet it. As I'm painting my fish, you'll see that I do use it in different ways. So I'm trying to use it quite thickly, and then I'll add in a bit more water and I use it a bit more watery. So it's definitely true that you can be quite versatile with this and change your different methods. I am also adding in some near colours, and I actually did these on a timer because the prompt as part of my art challenge at the moment was fast fish. I did these in 6 to 7 minutes depending on the fish, and I really like the way that timers keeps me loose, and so that's why I decided to do it with this one. It was a little bit difficult because this was a medium that I'm not completely comfortable with. I still don't use acrylic gouache as often as I use traditional gouache, but it was still really nice to play with, and the timer definitely does help keep me loose and organic in my work. So on this fish I was using it a little bit more like acrylic paint and doing it quite thick, and I was definitely channeling Rebecca Green's style here. She definitely creates a lot of texture in her brush strokes, and so I was layering this on, mixing up different tones like the more yellowy green there, which I really like that colour. That one was mixed with the sap green and the mustard, and then a touch of the vermilion red, and then also using that really nice emerald green for some of the details on top. I'm just referencing some copyright free fish here, and then I do label them at the end, but it was really nice to be able to highlight a lot of the colours. I did end up using all of the colours in the palette on this page for the different fish. But one of the things that I really think is missing from this palette, and that Rebecca Green does say in the blog post that you should have alongside this palette, is a white. But I really think that that should have been in the palette instead of the gold. So there is a gold, and I tend to not reach for the metallics very often. So I really wish that that had been swapped out just for a white, because although you would use, or I tend to use more white, and so maybe you'd get through that quicker than the others, I just think it would create a bit more versatility with the set, because she does recommend mixing it with a white. What I did, and you'll have seen at the beginning when I was prepping my palette, was I actually just used acrylic paint. So I just used white acrylic paint, and that worked really well, and I found that really helpful. Here I'm adding on the dots, so the white dots on this fish, but also to mix up that lighter blue. I did use that white quite a lot. So you can use acrylic paint, but I would like to get some acrylic gouache white as well. I just wish that the gold wasn't in there. I think I would maybe use a small tube of gold, which I might use for embellishment on some other work, but I do think that the white would be more handy. Now there's also no black, but there is a sepia, and that is a super dark brown. I don't use black in my work, so it's absolutely fine for me that that wasn't included, and just like Rebecca does, she uses brown to mix up her dark tones. And the sepia is super dark, so I found that really helpful for when I did want to mix up a darker tone, and when I did add a lot more water to it, it also created a much lighter brown, which was perfect. So I really like that addition, but as I said, I do wish that there was no gold in the set. There's also a burnt sienna, which is really nice. Again, that's got that warm tone brown, so the sepia is quite cool toned, but it does lighten up with some water. And then you've also got ash blue, which is really nice, and ash yellow. So those two are much more muted than the other ones. I did add a little bit of gold onto that fish, but not much. I couldn't really use much gold on these fish, and I don't think I paint much with gold anyway. But the ash yellow is kind of like a muted gold, I would say. It's definitely a dirty yellow, but I think that's a really nice colour to go in the set, especially if you are painting landscapes. I think that would work really nicely and create a lot of different tones of green as well when they're mixed in with the other colours. Here I'm using that ash blue instead of a black for this fish here, And I did also mix that in a little bit with the sepia, again, to darken it up a little bit. And I really like the way that works. I don't use black, as I say, so this worked out quite nicely. And I'm again varying up my brush strokes to be a little bit thicker for some of the denser colours. And then when I am doing more refined areas, when I'm doing the outline, and when I want it to be a lot less opaque, I'm adding a bit more water. So I do really like that you can do that with this one. But where I wanted to be extra precise, I did come in with my pencils. This was kind of extra faff time at the end after the timer, so I was cheating a little bit, but they definitely didn't go over 7 or 8 minutes on these. But I just like the precision I can do with the pencils, and then coming in with some near colours just to add that little pink pop. I could mix this up with the red and also a white, but I decided to just use the near colours, just like I'm doing here. Just using a lilac and then also a dark indigo luminance pencil just to highlight some more details on some of these fish. I do think I overworked some of the fish, especially this blue one, but some of them I really like. Some of them didn't come out quite as I imagined in my head, but that's okay, that's what sketchbooks are for, and this was a really fun prompt. I knew I wanted to do fast fish as a prompt because I do enjoy painting fish, and I also enjoy having all of those colours on one spread. I think it's a really nice way to fill a spread in your sketchbook. So again, I'm using luminance pencils just to neaten things up. I didn't really need to do this. I think I was just trying to finish off these fish so they felt finished, but I think the labels actually did that for me. So I didn't need to add these extra bits on, but I had my near colours out anyway, so I decided to do it and finish them off because actually at this point I wasn't super keen on them. But as I said, I think adding in these labels here really helped to finish off this spread nicely. If you're watching this as this video goes out, we've still got a week and a half or so left of the Daily Art Challenge. If you've been following along on Instagram, thank you so much. If you wanted to jump in, then feel free to start now. It's totally okay if you're not starting at the beginning. If you would like to just join in the challenge, it's been so much fun so far and so inspiring to see everybody's work. And I know from your feedback you've been enjoying it too, so thank you for taking part, and here's to the next couple of weeks as we finish off the challenge and in the lead up to my book. So you might have seen at the beginning of the video that my book is very close to its publication date, so it's on March the 6th and it's very close. I cannot wait, but I'm doing a live stream on publication day to mark the end of 30 Days of Sketchbook Joy and the publication of my book. So if you want to join me on that live stream, please do. It will be under the live tab on my YouTube channel. But I hope you've enjoyed this and seeing these fish come to life, as well as a little look at this Holbein Acrylic Gouache set with Rebecca Green. Thank you to my patrons for their support, and a big thank you for watching. I will see you next Sunday in my new YouTube video. See you later!